Hey, this is Keith from Save the Rust, and tonight we're in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada with Tyler. And tonight we're going to check out some of his bikes, and his projects. So let's turn it over to Tyler and let's get on with this. So we're going to start off with Tyler's 1966 Norton Atlas. So you want to tell us about this bike?
Yeah, sure. I grew up riding dirt bikes on my farm. My dad had a bunch of old Suzuki two-stroke dirt bikes, and that's where I learned to ride. And so I've always been interested sort of in vintage motorcycles and just vintage machines in general. And I can remember I was at Chapters one day, and I think I picked up a copy of Classic Bike magazine. And in that, there was a guy who was working on a Panther, an old English Panther, and it was pieces were all set off, and I thought that was the coolest thing I ever saw. And I was like, I want to do that. I always thought British bikes were cool. I was always a Steve McQueen fan, and Steve McQueen always rode a Triumph, and all the old sort of movie stars from the 60s rode Triumphs and Nortons and stuff, so I just thought that was pretty cool. And so, and I remember reading about Tritons in these magazines. I didn't know what a Triton was, and I eventually learned it was a Triumph engine and a Norton frame. And so that got me into this Norton frame, and I started looking into this featherbed frame thing. And so I thought that was pretty cool too. And so first I wanted to build a Triton. And so I found this bike online from Wolfsville, Nova Scotia. And I can't remember the name of there's a British
Cycle Supply.
British Cycle Supply, that's right. And he was the parts guy for British Cycle Supply. I believe his name was Dave Bird. And he was working on this project, and he wanted to get rid of it because he found a Rocket 3, a BSA Rocket 3, so we want to get rid of this. And so I got a pretty good deal on it and had to ship it from Nova Scotia, which was no small feat. But it came all in pieces. It was pretty much together, except the crankshaft was actually out of the engine. So I had my dad basically rebuilt the whole thing. There's a local Norton guy in town. His name's Stuart Hardcastle, and he's a Norton guru. He knows everything about Nortons, especially Commandos. And so he redid the head for me. He ported and polished everything. The rocker arms are really nicely polished and everything. And so yeah, my dad put the engine together, and we put it in the frame. I had the frame powder coated and some of the other parts powder coated. But I decided to leave the tank sort of original. I kind of dig the patina on it. It's a little bit of a ding here, but I always think it's only original once, and once you paint over it, you can never get it back. So I try to just leave it the way it is. Again, I cleaned up some things, but I still think it's kind of cool to leave them original because it's not a show bike. I like riding my bikes. I changed out the shocks and some of the tins, but for the most part, it's pretty original. Yeah, it's a 750. It rides really nice. And I've had some small problems with it, but every problem that usually happens is my own fault. And so once it's dialed in and buttoned up, it runs really well.
It's interesting to see it without the front fender. It looks good without the front fender.
Yeah, I didn't really like the front fender in this one. I have it's actually right behind you, sitting there, the front fender, that's it. But it's quite big, and it kind of covers a lot of the tire, and I never really liked that, so I decided just to leave it off. But yeah, I don't really ride it in the rain too much anyway, so I don't really have to worry about water splashing up. But yeah, it's been good.
Any performance upgrades done to it at all?
Well, other than the headwork that Stuart did, like I said, the valves are polished, the rocker arms are polished, the heads have been ported. The only thing I wish I would have done was sort of ported out and matched the intake manifold here, like on the inside, but it's pretty close. The other thing is I have a Mikuni on it, and that Mikuni is just perfect. It's just like magic starting it up. This is the last year that the Atlas came with monoblock. It had twin monoblock carbs, and they kind of worked, but the monoblock has the float bowl is sort of on the side, and the cover is on the side, so they leak quite badly. It was mostly because of the float level. Like, you could get them not to leak, but it was a pain. Anyways, I got this kit, and the kit came with I think it was called Evergreen online back in the day. Anyways, it came with a special intake manifold just for the Mikuni, and it was pre-jetted, and it's just been like magic ever since. I haven't had to touch it. The choke lever is awesome, and it starts almost the first kick every time.
So you went from was that dual carb at the
Yeah,
time?
dual carb. Yeah, two.
Down to one?
Yeah, down to one. So it was a 2 monoblocks. After 66, 67, and 68, they had 2, what are they called? Not the monoblocks, concentrics.
Yeah.
So you had 2 dual concentrics after that, but the Mikuni is number 1 as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've still got the dual carbs on mine, and it's nice to know that you can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd never researched it enough.
Yeah, the only problem is this is actually sort of kind of a race kit with the intake manifold and the carb, and so you're actually supposed to have sort of a racing oil tank so you can fit an air cleaner on there, and I don't have that, and so I took a snowmobile air cleaner, and it was foam, and so I was able to squish the foam sort of in between there, so that's the air cleaner. It actually works pretty well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think I just got like velocity stacks on mine.
Oh
and-
yeah. Well, in Saskatchewan, it gets quite dusty around where I ride, so I don't
Yeah.
know. I need an air filter. Yeah.
Cool. That looks great. That looks great.
Yeah, it's been really good actually, and it's fun rebuilding it with my dad. This is the bike I really learned to build on. Like I'd never built a bike. I am not a mechanic. Like I'm an English teacher. Like I'm the kind of the furthest thing from a mechanic there is, and my dad's a mechanical engineer. And I grew up working with him on the farm and all our machines, and now with YouTube I can always just look up whatever I need to. So it's just sort of I sort of inherited some knowledge from him, and then getting a feel for the mechanics growing up. And now, like I said, if I ever have a problem, my dad's still around it, but he can YouTube and he can kind of do anything. So I don't have too much of a problem. I just kind of learned how to take apart the clutch. I mean, the transmission is a little bit beyond my skill, but anything other than that, I'm pretty confident I can fix or repair or replace.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what's this?
Yeah, this little
What is
mini
this
bike.
thing?
It's pretty cool. It's a Gemini. It's a Gemini SST, and I believe it's a 69. And I can't remember if this is a Gemini or a Maverick. And I think the Maverick only came out in the 1 year. And SST stands for Xing Sang Tong, which I believe was out of Taiwan. And they were contracted to make parts for Yamaha. And they eventually sort of broke off and built their own bikes. But the engines were essentially sort of Yamaha engines, slightly modified. And so most Yamaha parts for a YG or an old 50cc Yamaha will fit this little bike. And so I got a pretty good deal on it. The owner couldn't get it running. I bought it from him and got it running, and it runs actually really well. It'll beat the tar out of a Honda Z because it's got it's a 2-stroke. It's got four gears, and it goes like a scalded hog.
What? And that's 50cc?
Yeah, 50cc 2-stroke.
It's interesting to see, with those crank down bars, that's like a Honda 50 thing.
Yeah.
Yet here is a completely different manufacturer doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they must have copied it a little bit. And I've seen guys throw different engines in these, and with the Zs too, they'll kind of swap engines out. But yeah, originally this had a headlight and a tail light. And I believe in Japan, bikes like this are legal to ride on the street because they have different rules. Like you see, when I was in Japan 2 years ago, there were guys riding monkey bikes down the street. And
Really,
it's fully
eh?
illegal. You can't do that here because it's just under the limitation of being too small, but I still rip around the street every now and then.
Cool. That is pretty unique. I've never heard of the...
Yeah.
Say that again?
SST was Xing Sang Tong.
Xing Sang Tong.
Yeah, Xing
Okay.
Sang Tong. Yeah, if you Google it, it's mostly under Gemini. And they eventually made an 80cc bike, and I think they made a 125 before Yamaha took them to court and then shut everything down. Yep.
Took the people who are making their motors to court.
Yeah. 'Cause they're breaking their copyright or the patent or whatever it is. Yep.
And so what about this thing over here? I see this.
Yeah, I just
Chopper
got that.
frame.
I got that last year. A guy was selling a couple, sort of a chopper project. And actually, this was sort of a byproduct of the sale because he originally had a hardtail Santee frame with a, what do they call it? A plunger frame.
Oh, yeah.
With those shocks on the back, but still a hardtail. And that was, and that used this motor here sort of in the back, you can see. And they drag raced with that motor in that frame using a Yamaha front end, a Yamaha XS front end. And so they drag raced with that bike. And so I kind of bought this as a package. It came with this, with that Springer front end you see. And then this frame And then I did a little bit of research. I really like this frame because it's original, the Triumph, not a repro like the Santee. And so this is a 69 T120 frame. It's been raked. I do not know the angle of the rake, but it looked pretty straight to me. And sissy bars welded on, and the welding work looks really good on it. So I snagged that. And it turns out, like I said, that's a 69 frame, and that's a 69 engine. So that's I've never built a chopper before, and I always kind of wanted to. My goal for British bikes was to have sort of a cafe bike, which is my Norton, a scrambler bike, which is my Triumph, and then a chopper. And so that's my next thing is going to be to button this thing up. I don't know how it's going to look, but I got some ideas. And then for the other frame, the Santee frame, I might try to find maybe a Norton engine and maybe modify that, and so I could have a Norton chopper and a Triumph chopper. But I don't know, that might be a little bit too ambitious for me, but.
So all this one day.
Yeah, well, that's sort of some Norton parts in there. There's some Harley parts in there, but yeah, that's all. Most of it's for this, yeah.
Cool, and you got a Triumph also. Yeah, the
this is currently on the lift. Now they got the Norton off there. Is this Triumph? It's basically a TR6. It's a 67 TR6 frame, which I believe is a trophy, and a 72 T120 engine, which is a 650. And yeah, I picked this up locally as a project, and I got some other parts I sold with it. I'm almost like broke even with this after I sold some other stuff. And yeah, my dad, again, with a little bit of my help, rebuilt the engine, and I took it right down. He had to use a razor blade to cut off or strip all the paint and stuff, and then yeah, we just got the engine in not too long ago. And so now that the Norton is all running, I just got to get all the oil lines set up and do the electrical, and then I'm off to the races, I hope. Yeah, this bike was kind of funny. When I was sanding it down, there was multiple paint colors underneath this. If you check this out, this was one of the paint colors. It's like a deep lilac. Imagine the whole bike. The frame was all that color too. It's kind of a weird color. So I don't know. I think there's
what's going on with the tank here?
Yeah, it looks like somebody used it for a Harley at one point, but it's pretty cool. This is another one of those tanks that I don't want to paint over. It's got original flame job. Once I get the knee pads, you can see how the flames sort of go around the knee pad. And I have badges, but they're actually the wrong here. But it's neat because the badge will actually cover up that little Harley part. And so the flame kind of goes around the badge nicely and around the knee pad. Pretty neat. So I actually had some guy already offered from Ontario, saw this online. I was like, I want that tank, and I'll if you want another tank painted, ask me and I'll give you the painted tank, and I want that one. I was like, I don't know about that. But so yeah, it's pretty cool. That's why I like kind of keeping it original, you know what I mean? Like I've even seen guys on Instagram now who mimic vintage painting. You know, I don't know the technique they use, but they'll paint it.
Patina
and
painting.
Yeah, they'll crack it or whatever, the way it looks all old. So that's sort of becoming a trend. I always thought that was cool anyway. So I'm probably just going to keep this. I might clear coat it over or something like that, but otherwise I think I'm going to just kind of leave it the way it is. It's pretty cool like that, I think.
And the tank came with the...
Yeah, this tank and another tank. The other tank that came with it was a really, I don't know what they're called, not a slim line, but it was real slim coming down here. It was badly dented in, and so I sold that. I kind of regret doing it, but it was not usable. It was really...
So you're building this as your scrambler version?
Yeah, kind of my scrambler. This is going to be my dirty spring bike. So once it starts to melt, there's still snow around, but there's still some pavement. I usually take out my dad's little TS250 during the spring when it's kind of still wet out, but this is supposed to be my dirty spring bike.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Got some aggressive tires on it to give you a little bit more traction?
Yeah, well, I kind of bought those for, what do you call it? Grass drags and stuff, because in the summer we do grass drags and slow rides and stuff. So this was going to be my grass drag bike a little bit, but they're dirt track tires, so I'm going to see. I don't know if they're going to spin or if they're going to grip. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah. And
then you got your little man cave here. With
yeah, the arcades. Yeah, when I was a kid, I was into arcades, and there's a place by my house called Buffalo Bills, and I spent a lot of time playing the Neo Geo over there. And so I guess it was maybe 10 years ago, I thought, you know what, I kind of want an arcade. And so I found this in Saskatoon. I drove up and picked it up, and I took it home, and it was working. It was pretty cool. And I said, to the ex, I said, yeah, this is pretty cool. I think I'm going to build an arcade in the garage. And she said, no, you're not. I said, no, I think I am. So here it is. Yeah. And and then after that, I kind of was like, well, that's pretty neat. And so like I said, I wanted to build an arcade. So I picked up as many as I could at the time. And a lot of them weren't working when I bought them. And so I had to learn how to like be a intermediate electrical engineer. I did not know anything about electronics, but I had to learn, and that's the beauty of YouTube and the internet. So I learned how to wire this up, and learned what a JAMA was, and learned how to use the power source. And I did not know. I have no formal training in any of that, but this wasn't working, that wasn't working when I got them. And so it's pretty neat to figure it out. I mean, there's definitely some stuff on here that I could not fix or that I have no knowledge of, but just learning how to solder a circuit board, and then ordering where to get parts from, and then hooking it all up and making them work was pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then we'll get to we'll call it your daily rider, I guess?
The hog. Yeah, the low rider. Yeah, this is a 2020 low rider. This is sort of, if you have British bikes, I think you have to have a new bike for the old reliable. And this is the bike. I haven't really done much to this bike, and that's kind of the way I like it. When I bought it, it had the old school, what are they called? Buckhorn handlebars. And so I remember when I first got it, I had a Dyna before this, and I really liked my Dyna. And so I got this bike, and I remember I sat on it for the first time, and I was riding it home. My buddy and I bought the bikes the same day, and I was sitting on it. It was sort of like this, and I was pushed up real far with a seat, and I was riding like this. I was like, what have I done? I was like, I can't believe I sold my Dyna for this, and I could never really get around it, and I couldn't figure out like what it was. And so I tried a couple seats, and they didn't really work. But the main thing was the handlebars in the seat. And so I got these are Thrash and Supply bars, and then Chubby's risers. The rise is 10 inches. That's 4.5. That's 5.5. 10 inches, and then the Saddleman seat, and now it's just perfect. Like it's so comfortable to ride this. I've ridden this to California a couple times, ridden to BC a bunch of times, down to the States a lot, in Montana, South Dakota a lot. And it's been great. And that's really the only mods I've done, is the handlebars, the seat, and the sissy bar that I strap my luggage to. I kind of like the bike the way it is. I know a lot of guys spend a lot of money doing modifications, but I like kind of modifying my British stuff and tinkering with those rather than this one too. I always kind of figure too, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
And so this is old reliable, and it's been really good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So again, I want to thank Tyler for showing us his collection, and I'm Keith from Save the Rust.
And Tyler, ride safe.
This is Save the Rust. This is what we do. This is who we are. Have a great day.